Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise, glory, and honor unto Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rabakakwadash. I would also like to give a double honors unto the apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone who do well that have taught me this truth. And I would also like to say a sincere shalom unto the hopeful elect, unto the scattered elect, unto the servants, the prophets, the men who are out there prophesying, laboring in this truth and in this doctrine. Unto you I say shalom. Conditions are worsening for the U.S. military with no end in sight. All right, this war is not about to end anytime soon. The troops aren't going to come home. All those troops that are out there, they're going to stay out there. Although, and it's going to be more to come. All right, this war is not going anywhere, and it's in conditions are worsening for those that are out there, especially on this USS Abraham Lincoln, this aircraft carrier. All right, where it's where they're reporting that the conditions are so dire and so bad that sailors are attempting to commit suicide, jumping overboard, where they just, they're at the point where they don't have food. Of course, they don't have toiletries. They have moldy showers. So, and eventually, instead of fighting an enemy, which a lot of the sailors know that they're not fighting for American democracy and all that bullshit. They're fighting for the interests of the so-called Jays over there, the Israelis. All right, they're fighting for Israel. All right, they're fighting for Israel's interests. All right, and a lot. What does the scripture say? Daniel 12. That knowledge shall be increased, because before the internet, all right, which the Most High created for this truth, all right, before this social media, all right, when these wars were fought, you had to hear about incidents and things going on through newspapers, all right, or through your media, multimedia, the CNNs, the MSNBCs, all right, the Fox News, you had to, which is controlled by the elite, all right, the so-called Jew, he owns all he owns all the media, so they can push whatever they want. But now you have various social media platforms where people are self-reporting. All right, people are reporting things that are going on, and they're backing it up with video evidence, by pictures, and it's being shared to the world. All right, just like we could look at these various Twitter feeds and articles about what's going on. Don't you think the Iran and these various foes of America, China, they're looking at this, they're scoffing, they're saying, "Damn, you guys spend over $1 trillion a year on your military. You can't feed your soldiers better than this. You can't you feed them at all? You can't fly in any type of food or the resources that they need." This is a very shameful showing of U.S. military. All right, and let me see. I got a few little Twitter feeds. I think here's one. No, actually, I'm gonna come back to that one. And they're not. I guess they're not showing me the whole text message transcript. It says exclusive text messaging from service members abroad. The USS Abraham Lincoln show horrific conditions. They don't have any fresh food. One service member questioned if the government is doing this intentionally to see how far they can push sailors' limits. And that's what it looks like. I was, upon looking at this and, seeing brothers put up lessons, it almost seems like Esau is doing a social experiment. Like they had those experiments with the rats, and they they have abundance of resources, then they begin to take the resources away. And what happens? The rats in the certain experiment begin to fight each other, begin to fight over those resources, and that's what's going to happen here eventually if this continues on this USS Abraham Lincoln. All right, where you're going to have sailors which were, on a so-called mission or exercise as one unit to in their mind they're thinking they're serving their military and their duty and their purpose, but they're eventually going to be fighting each other over basic necessities, and the main necessity is food. Okay, and a lot of these sailors are being pushed to their limit. It says, let me scroll down. It says, oh, that's someone's comment. Let me see what this is. It says, Multiple USS Abraham Lincoln sailors have tried to go overboard amid extended deployment, family says. All right, and these are articles. These ain't just and eventually they're. I'm pretty sure they if they haven't already, they're going to cut off communication for the sailors to from the outside world. All right, they may just ban emails and text messages or whatever. It says Loma, who lives in San Diego, said her husband has been repeatedly overextended before he tried to jump from the carrier. He's scared, Loma said. He thinks he'll get a dishonorable discharge, and just because he was burnt out. His 13-year career is ruined just like that. That's not fair. It's not right. That's not what he should be worrying about right now. And they're at war. These are soldiers, and like the one of the elders in Mississippi, Ayasha Mali did a lesson. He said, "Man, these other nations is laughing. Like this is your soldiers. This is your best of the best. Your Marines, your Navy, all right, your Air Force, your Army. This is how they react. They, under a little, well not under a little, but under harsh conditions. They ready to just call it quits. All right, and the conditions must be really that bad, or their mental must be really fucked up for them to want to just end it all. And a lot of these people more than likely have families, have children, all right, where they ready to end it, all right, over being out to sea for however long, 255 days, all right, and they're working long hours. Hey, this is war, all right. Hey, ain't no, you're not more than likely. A lot of these soldiers, the majority of these soldiers, if not all of them, are never coming back home. That's what they don't have to understand. This war is not going anywhere. Iran is not going anywhere. Okay, and pretty much Israel controls the U.S. military now. All right, so and Trump is nothing more than a puppet that's pretty much doing what he's told. All right, but the shame of America, Babylon, is being shown. All right, where they have all this money for this folly, but they can't even get supplies, mainly food, all right, fresh toiletries and various items that these sailors need to them, all right, where they could continue their mission or whatever you want to call it, all right. But eventually, we know this is going to lead to World War III, and a lot of, like I said, all these soldiers, sailors, Navy men, they ain't never coming back. They're going to partake in World War III and be destroyed eventually. All right. It says Lincoln roughly 5,000 sailors and Marines remain on deployment that began November 21st. The carrier has been deployed for more than 8 months while supporting U.S. military operations in the Middle East against Iran. The deployment, which was anticipated to end in May, has been extended with no publicly announced return date. Excuse me. Let me see what this says right here. Pretty much all these are pretty much saying the same thing. U.S. sailors on USS Lincoln are attempting suicide in order to get off the ship. Um, Trump has Trump has stranded them on. Let me see what this is. It says new photo from the U.S. Abraham Lincoln shows service members receiving minimal food portions, so they're rationing food. All right. So imagine, and I was thinking about this. This is a form of Jacob's trouble. All right, on this on this aircraft carrier, because they're going to do the same thing here in America. All right, the resources are going to be scarce. They're going to ration food out. They're going to, some things are just not going to be available. All right, and just like on this ship, eventually people are going to fight. These sailors are going to begin to fight over resources. So how much more of these people? Okay, look at this food they give them. That I don't even know what the hell that is. Look like an egg, a boiled egg. Folks, let me click on this bullshit. More photos emerge as meals on Navy ships and Pentagon denies shortage. Of course, they're going to deny it. But the world sees, all right, that Esau's full of shit. All right. And eventually this could possibly cause, and I believe it will, cause sedition here in Babylon, here in America, where, these citizens, that these patriotic citizens are going to be feeling some type of way about the situations that are going on. All right, all these MAGAs that were pro-Trump, they're going to be feeling some type of way. All right, because hey, they know what they see. All right, it's not no, it ain't fake news. All right. Let me see. I guess they're not showing it, but you can see the picture right there where look at that shit. I don't even know what that is. Ain't probably even meat. What is this? What is this stuff right here? What is this? Man, imagine that. Imagine you working a 12-hour, 16-hour shift, and that's all you got to eat. Man, you, as it's going to get to a point where a lot of these service members they don't care about a dishonorable discharge. They just want to leave. Okay, they're pretty much saying this is not what I signed up for. All right, they're probably gonna try to find some loophole to try to get out, but there ain't no way out. All right, because then this war ain't gonna end. All right, this is the last war. This is the war of wars. All right, let me see. This pretty much says the same thing. All right, which has been coming out, and it's cold part about it. It's coming out in mainstream news. All right, and don't think that this aircraft carrier is the only one out there. You have battleships that are out there, aircraft carriers, all right, out at sea, and they ain't coming back. All right. Um, so let me get a few scriptures because this is very shameful. This is but Esau, Babylon is being exposed. All right, where you thought that they boast about their military, they boast about their military prowess, and they have all these various defense systems and weapons, but what are they doing with it? They're over there, they're losing a war with in their mind, which is an inferior opponent, but the Mossad is dealing with Iran right now. The Mossad is dealing with China and Russia. Okay, the Mossad is assembling these great nations to come against this place. All right, so let me start with Obadiah 1 and 2. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. The Lord is making Babylon small, and they're being looked upon as small on a global scale. All right, where the world is watching right now. Everyone in the world is watching except these dead people here in Babylon. All right, the ones that don't know what's going on. All right, but the rest of the world, the EU, the NATO nations, all right, the BRICS nations, everyone's watching America and just watching their pretty much watching them go down shamelessly. All right. The pride of thy heart have deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rocks, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? That's the same mind state that America has now. That they still think that this is 1948, 19 whenever they dropped the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, what is it called, Fat Man and Little Boy, those hydrogen bombs and the atom bomb, and they think that the world is still in awe and still in fear of them. All right, because the pride of their heart has deceived them. They're saying that they still think that who can bring me down? You're bringing yourself down. Okay, and really it's the Lord that's bringing this devil down and showing the world the shame. All right, how did you spend all this money on military? All right, but and really it's a prideful thing because they didn't think that this Iran, I'll call it conflict with Iran, or they're calling it, all right, or really this is a war. They didn't think it was going to go on that long. All right, they thought that hey, we're just going to go in there, we're going to do this, this, and this, and we're going to do this. If they do this, we're going to do this, and then we're going to be out of there, and then we'll have the Strait of Hormuz. Then we'll have access to all the oil we want. We'll put a new government, a puppet government up in Iran that will follow what we want to do. But hey, that's not according to prophecy. Okay, according to prophecy, you don't win this war. All right, Iran is ancient Persia. Iran is not Venezuela, where you're just gonna go in there, execute your moves, and then be out with the oil. No, it's not working like that because the Mossad is not on your side. All right, the Mossad did not bless America. Okay, this place is cursed. All right, let me grab this real quick. It's Ecclesiasticus, chapter 26 and verse 28. It says, there are two things that grieve and grieve my heart. The third maketh me angry, a man of war that suffereth poverty. All right, these are men of war, but they're suffering poverty. They're in a impoverished state. Okay, because really the soldiers are the engine that makes that thing go. All right, and when you have super low morale on these various vessels, it's contagious. All right, where it's like the next sailor next to you, he can't everyone in the same shit. All right, so it's nothing that you could tell the next man to he's like, look, nigga, I ain't got it either. All right, you ain't got it, I ain't got it. When things are gonna, when are things, they're in their mind, they're thinking, when are things going to get better? They're not. Okay, pretty much like that one tweet said, Trump stranded them. Where did it say? Trump has stranded them on they're pretty much stranded. Okay. Um. Oh, back to the scripture. Let me finish reading the scripture. What was that? A man of war that suffereth poverty, and men of understanding that are not set by, and one that returneth from righteousness to sin, the Lord prepareth such as one for the sword. Really, the main point was a man of war that suffereth poverty. Okay. Oh yeah, let me grab this because Esau's being exposed, man. Esau's, America's being exposed, the devil's being exposed, but on like the whole world is witnessing this. Okay, the whole world is witnessing you lose this war to what like I say, what America believed to be an inferior opponent. Like, oh, we're just gonna wipe them out. Okay, we got everything, we got all our ducks in a row, and that's what America thought. That's what they believed. But Iran, they've been planning for this. They've been planning this for their whole life. A lot of these soldiers. All right, they're welcoming a ground invasion. Okay, and that, like I said, that's ancient Persia, and it's never really been fully conquered. Okay, um, but like I said, I can always say, Iran is in this war for the long haul. They're not surrendering. They don't want a peace treaty. They don't want to come to some agreement. They don't want a ceasefire. All right? The Lord doesn't want a ceasefire. The Lord wants this war to take place. The Lord wants these nations to assemble against Babylon. All right, this is Nahum chapter 3 and verse 4. Because of the multitudes of whoredoms of the well-favored harlot, that's America, the mistress of witchcraft that selleth nations through her whoredoms and families through her witchcraft, those are those philosophies. All right, this scripture says in Revelations 18 that all the nations have, basically, roughly paraphrasing, the nations have committed fornication with the whore. Okay, with America, Babylon. Okay, behold, I am against thee, saith the Lord of hosts. I will discover thy skirts upon thy face, and I will show the nations thy nakedness, and the kingdoms thy shame. Basically, being revealed. All right, like if a woman has a skirt and it's lifted up to her face, you seeing all her, all her private parts. She's being revealed. Okay, she's being, the nations are seeing this whore's nakedness. Okay, and the Lord is revealing. All right, doing a great revealing to the world. All right, even the allies of Babylon are looking like, damn, we don't have a great military like you, but at least we could do this, this, and this. At least we're not going to leave our soldiers out there to pretty much leave our soldiers out there stranded. All right, I will cast abominable filth upon thee and make thee vile, and I will set thee as a gazing stock. All right, the Lord is setting Babylon as a gazing stock. Let me look up this word gazing stock real quick. It says a person or thing gazed at by many, especially with curiosity or contempt. See full definition. See. Gazing stock definition. It's pretty much the same thing. A person or thing gazed at by many, especially with curiosity or contempt. They're curious, like, damn, how did this happen? All right? The nations are looking at America like, how did you get in this position? What the hell you been doing with all your money? You put $1 trillion goes in the military, and what are you doing with it? Okay, that should be the question. No, they probably not spending $1 trillion. Their budget is probably combined with Israel's budget. A lot of that money is going over. The majority of that money is going over to Israel, while they're telling you it's for defense. All right. So let me go from there to Isaiah um, 49. Isaiah 49 and 10. It reads, is it 10? Oh, excuse me. Jeremiah 49 and verse 10. It says, prophecy against Edom. I'll start at 7. Concerning Edom, thus saith the Lord. Edom is Esau. That is who you ignorantly call we call the so-called white man. All right. Concerning Edom, thus saith the Lord of hosts, is wisdom no more than Teman? Is the counsel perished from the prudent? Is their wisdom vanished? Because the ancient Temanites, all right, were the wise men of Edom. All right, that's and today your Temanites would be your Germans, or so-called Germans. All right, but they're Edomites. All right, but they were the wise men. But the Lord is asking, it's a taunt actually. The counsel perished from the prudent. Is the wisdom vanished? Where's your wisdom? I thought you had all this military might. You had all these colonels and generals that had all this. You're supposed to be planning for this. All right. Flee ye, turn back, dwell deep, O inhabitants of Dedan, for I will bring the calamity of Esau upon him, the time that I will visit him. The grape gatherers come to thee. Would they not leave some gleaning grapes? If thieves by night they will destroy till they have enough. I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbor, and he is not. Esau has yet to be spoiled, but we're living in a time where he's going to be spoiled, where he's going to be made bare. He's going to be revealed unto the world. He's going to be found out. Okay, the Lord is making Esau bare, where he's being uncovered. All right, and this is a part of it. All right, the shameful way that Esau is going out. All right, by having their military just look sad. All right, having Iran having their military men in the Middle East retreat to hotels and hide. Okay, because their military bases in Jordan. Where's the other one that they bombed? I know one in Jordan. I can't think of the other place, but Iran has bombed several military bases in the Middle East area, and the soldiers that have survived, they're fleeing to within the various cities of those countries, and dwelling among the citizens of of that country, hiding. Okay, where's the what's the word? These are supposed to be the military. But they're hiding from they're hiding from war. Okay, that's shameful. All right. Let me go from there. The book of Habakkuk, chapter 2, and I'm going to start at verse 8. Because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, and of the city, and of all that dwell therein. All right, Esau, America, Babylon, all right, has spoiled many nations, have pillaged their natural resources, have stolen, all right, stolen lands, all right, stolen, like I said, all their resources, have pushed their various different philosophies on their people, witchcraft, various not witchcraft, yeah, witchcraft, but it's a form of witchcraft. Their democracies, LGBT, that whole movement, or they pushed a lot of wickedness on these various nations, okay, and spoiled these nations, okay, giving them loans, bad loans that they know they can never pay off. All right, sending economic hitman to basically make their economies unstable. All right, where they become slaves to or indebted to Babylon, and really they become indebted to the international bankers, the wicked elite. Okay, it reads verse 9: Woe to him that covet and evil covetousness, to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. All right, and Esau has that covetous spirit where he wants more than he can have. He wants to gather and gather and gather and gather until there's nothing left. Okay, pretty much where he's gathered and he's hoarded everything to himself. And the thing about it is he doesn't want to share. Okay, he gathers all these resources, and he just wants to sit. He wants to sit and have them and just and ration them off to the people. All right, if that, all right, or charge the people, crazy prices for the smallest resources. All right, verse 10: Thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and have sinned. It has sinned against thy soul. For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. Woe to him that buildeth a town with blood, and establish a city by iniquity. Behold, it is not of the Lord of hosts that the people shall labor in the very fire, and the people shall weary themselves for very vanity. Actually, I want to jump down to verse 16. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. All right, so hey, that's a shameful thing. All right, shame for glory. All right, they gloried in their military. Now it's a shameful thing. All right, where to be in the U.S. military right now, what do you have to be proud about? Okay, you're not fighting for America Republic or whatever the hell they fight for. You're not fighting for that. You're not fighting for democracy, and they always push this narrative that the troops are over there fighting for fighting for our freedom or fighting for our democracy or whatever the fuck they say. They know they ain't fighting for that, and the dumbass American people should know that by now. That Israel ultimately controls America's military interests. Go over here, guard this. Go over here and guard these poppy fields. Go over here. They're in the interests of the wicked elite. The military's over here invading, bombing. This all in the interest of gaining some resource from some country. All right, who they want to rob and pillage their land and their resources. Okay, so this war is not gonna. There's no end in sight for this war, and the conditions eventually are going to worsen. They're going to worsen for Americans here in Babylon. They're going to worsen for those soldiers that are out there fighting. Okay, and it's only people that's going to get better for is the elect. Okay, the hopeful elect that are out there that are that have faith, that see this man's end. Okay, and the Lord has given them the eye salve to foresee the end of this man's kingdom. All right, and we're hastening unto that day. We see, hey, this is the times we're living is probably the closest I think we in my personal experience in the truth have been. All right, you had COVID came, and then it kind of that was COVID did what it was supposed to do. All right, but these times is now where we're in the midst of World War III, where eventually things are going to it may take some time, but things are eventually going to snowball into a war, a large full scale war with major players involved, like Russia, like China, okay, like North Korea, and eventually the NATO and the EU. All right, where they're going to have to pick a side, and we know the prophecy says that the beast shall hate the whore. So these various allies of America, they're going to come against this place eventually. All right, so we're living in great prophetic times, and the Lord is making shit happen. The Lord is acting on His words, and things are moving fast, whether you believe it or not. All right, so Lord willing, this lesson was edifying unto the hopeful elect, and I want to give all praise, glory, and honor unto Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Shalom.